My brother stood at the front of the conference room, smiling like he'd just crossed the finish line of a race he believed he'd run alone, and the screen behind him displayed slides I had spent 6 months building, every chart, every projection, every late-night revision crafted by my hands while he was too busy to join the calls, and as he cleared his throat and said, "I want to thank everyone for believing in my vision," something inside me went very quiet, because I knew in that moment this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a choice. The room filled with polite applause. I stayed seated, still, calm, invisible, the way he preferred me to be. He clicked to the next slide, explaining a strategy I'd written word for word, even repeating one of my phrases almost exactly, the one I'd joked about during a late call with the team, and I watched heads nod around the table, watched executives scribble notes, watched my brother glow under borrowed credit like it fit him perfectly. "You really pulled this together," the department head said admiringly. My brother laughed modestly. It was a grind, but someone had to step up. Someone, not me. I felt a familiar pressure in my chest, not anger yet, more like recognition, because this wasn't the first time. Growing up he'd always had a way of positioning himself in front of whatever I built, school projects, family businesses, even personal milestones, and when praise came, it always landed on him first, and when something went wrong, my name somehow found its way into the blame. I learned early that correcting him publicly only made me look bitter. So I stopped. I learned to document instead. Every version of every file. Every email thread. Every time-stamped submission. Not because I planned revenge. Because I planned survival. The presentation ended with another round of applause, stronger this time, and my brother leaned casually against the table, confidence dripping from every movement, and then he looked directly at me for the first time all morning. A small smile, not grateful, warning, as if to say remember your place. The meeting wrapped quickly after that, people filing out, congratulating him, shaking his hand, and as the room emptied, he walked over to me, lowering his voice. "You did good work," he said. "Don't ruin it by making noise." I looked up at him calmly. "Whose work?" His smile tightened. "Careful." That was the moment I decided. Not to argue. Not to complain. Not to expose him in the room he controlled. I waited. That afternoon, an email went out company-wide praising my brother's initiative and leadership. My inbox filled with congratulations meant for him. I forwarded every single one to a private folder. Then I opened another folder. The one labeled Final. Inside were drafts of the proposal with my name in the metadata, approval chains showing my sign-offs, internal messages where he'd asked me to clean this up and finish the hard parts, and a scheduled email I had written weeks ago but never sent. An email addressed to the board. An email that included attachments he didn't know existed. An email that would not accuse. It would simply clarify. I hovered my cursor over the send button, not with shaking hands, not with rage, but with certainty, because the most dangerous thing to someone who steals credit is not confrontation. It's evidence. I didn't send it yet. I waited for the right moment. Because my brother had taken credit for my work. And he had no idea what the final email was about to do. The right moment arrived sooner than I expected. The next morning, my brother walked into the office like a hero returning from battle, louder than usual, stopping at desks to accept congratulations he pretended embarrassed him, and every time someone said, "Great job on the presentation," he nodded like he'd earned it alone, like the nights I stayed awake fixing projections while he slept didn't exist, and I watched it all from my desk, calm on the outside, focused on timing instead of emotion. At 10:17 a.m., the board meeting reminder popped up on my screen. That was my window. I didn't rush. I reviewed everything one last time, not because I doubted the truth, but because precision matters when silence breaks. The email was already written, neutral in tone, professional to the point of boredom. No accusations. No emotional language. Just facts. I addressed it to the full board, senior leadership, legal, and, deliberately, my brother. Subject line. Clarification on project authorship. Short, clean, impossible to ignore. Before sending it, I leaned back in my chair and thought about how many times I'd been told to be patient, how many times I'd been told credit would come later, how often later never arrived, and then I pressed send. The click was soft. The effect was not. Within minutes, I felt the shift. People stopped laughing down the hall. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Someone coughed awkwardly near the printer. I watched inbox notifications light up on screens reflected in the glass walls of offices as the attachments opened one by one. My brother's office door slammed shut. At 10:29 a.m., he stormed out, face tight, jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack, and he marched straight toward my desk. "What the hell did you just do?" he hissed. I looked up calmly. I clarified. "You embarrassed me," he snapped. I tilted my head slightly. "I didn't mention your name." His eyes flashed. "You knew exactly what that email would do." "Yes," I said. "It would show who did the work." "You went behind my back," he growled. I met his gaze steadily. "You went in front of mine." People were watching now, pretending not to, but listening to every word. "This isn't over," he said quietly, threatening. "I know," I replied. "That's why I included legal." That's when he faltered. "Just a fraction." "Enough." At 11:03 a.m., a calendar update went out. Emergency leadership review, mandatory attendance. My brother froze when he saw it. So did I, but for very different reasons. We sat across from each other again, this time in a smaller room. No applause, no slides, just printed documents spread across the table like a timeline of truth. And as each file was discussed, each timestamp confirmed, each revision tracked back to my login, the story he'd told so confidently the day before unraveled without a single raised voice. The department head finally spoke. "Why wasn't this disclosed earlier?" My brother opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just listened. Then legal spoke. "Misrepresentation of authorship," they said calmly, "especially at this level, is a serious issue." My brother turned toward me, eyes sharp with accusation. "You planned this." I shook my head. "I prepared for it." "There's a difference." The room fell silent, and in that silence, the balance of power shifted completely. Because the truth had been sent. And it had landed exactly where it was supposed to. No one raised their voice in that room. No one needed to. The documents did all the talking, and they spoke clearly, calmly, without emotion, the way truth always does when it's finally given space. My brother sat rigid in his chair, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone pale, staring at pages that traced the project's entire life back to me. Every revision, every approval, every late-night submission logged under my name. The department head leaned back slowly. "So to be clear," she said, "the strategic framework, the projections, the implementation plan, those were all prepared by you." She looked at me. "Yes," I replied evenly. She turned to my brother. "And you presented them as your own." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Whatever excuse he had rehearsed didn't survive contact with evidence. Legal cleared their throat. "Intent matters here," they said. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was repeated omission. Omission. A clean word for theft. My brother finally spoke, his voice strained. "I was leading the team." "You were copying the team," the department head replied, not unkindly, just tired. "There's a difference." That was it. The last thread snapped. The meeting ended without ceremony. No dramatic declaration, no public shaming. Just decisions made quietly, the way serious ones always are. Roles were reassigned. Credit was corrected. And my brother was asked to step out while leadership discussed next steps. He didn't look at me as he stood. I gathered my things and left the room, my heart steady, my mind clear. I hadn't won anything. I had reclaimed what was already mine. By the end of the day, the company-wide update went out. It was short and carefully worded, acknowledging my work, repositioning the project under my leadership, and thanking everyone for their continued professionalism. My inbox filled with messages, some apologetic, some supportive, some awkwardly silent except for a single line. "I didn't know." That was fine. I didn't need them to know before. I needed them to know now. My brother didn't come in the next morning. Or the next. A week later, I learned he'd been moved to a different division, stripped of visibility, of influence, of the stage he loved so much. No announcement, no farewell email, just absence. He called me once. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, but because the conversation he wanted, to minimize, to justify, to reframe, was one I no longer needed to participate in. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Meetings where my voice wasn't spoken over. Decisions where my name appeared where it belonged. Work that felt lighter simply because it was honest. One evening, as I shut down my computer, I thought about that moment in the conference room, the applause, the smirk, the certainty with which he'd claimed my work as his own. And I realized something that surprised me. The revenge wasn't the email. It wasn't the meeting. It wasn't watching him lose ground. It was the quiet understanding that I no longer had to protect myself by staying small. My brother took credit for my work. He didn't expect the final email. And once it was sent, nothing needed to be said again.